So if all goes well tonight and I don't screw up our equipment, we're going to have a very special guest on tonight, Dino Costa. And I'm just letting the producer, Micah, know that I had sound in my ear and I don't have it anymore. So, Micah, if that's a problem, come in and let me know. If not, I'll keep going. Assuming you can all hear me out there, Dino Costa is a guy who's very talented, and Dino is going to do a radio show. Well, not a radio show. Dino, for years, did a radio show on Sirius XM, but he also has done this thing where he puts his radio show. He converted his radio to like a video talk show kind of thing. And so what Dino is doing now is he is starting a new show, and this show is going to be, the first hour of the show is going to be exclusive to Right Side Broadcasting. So you will only be able to see the first hour of his 4-hour show here on Right Side Broadcasting. That starts in February sometime. We'll ask Dino about it when he comes on. But Dino comes on, he's a true professional, and he's a really interesting guy, and he's got a lot of really forceful views on stuff, and I really like getting his perspective. So he'll be on very soon tonight on this show, and you can meet Dino, and you can even ask questions to Dino if you want. Maybe you want to know what his favorite ice cream flavor is. Maybe you want to ask him a question about the news. Maybe you want to ask him a question about his show. Whatever you want to ask, you can ask him, because as we do here on Real News with Real People, you can message me during the show. So the way you do this, and I know I'm going to say this and then you're going to ignore it and do it a different way just to get me mad, is go to Twitter. My handle is @Lookner, Lookner. Did I say I'm Steve Lookner yet? I'm Steve Lookner. So find @Lookner, direct message me. And when you direct message me, you can ask me the question, and I will be able to go on my Twitter feed and I will see what's going on. Oh, well, so we did have one message that said no sound. I assume that's correct at this point. That's from Parade Driver. Thanks. If it's been corrected. The nice thing about Parade Driver sending this message, though, is for once Parade Driver didn't ask if I was wearing pants, which Parade Driver does every show. So in a way, I think it was worth it to have no sound for a second. To get Parade Driver to not actually ask the same question again. Before we get to Dino, which we're going to do very soon, there's something I wanted to talk about in relation to the news. And this show, if you want, this is Real News by Real People, and what we do on this show, we don't just sort of read the 3-minute summaries of every single story and give the sort of similar take on them, very quick take that you'll see on all the major news networks. We try to pick out stories we're interested. Well, I'm interested in, but I think you're going to be interested in. We try to pick out these stories and we try to go a little more in depth in them, or give you a take that you haven't heard somewhere else, because we don't want you to give you the same thing you have other places. What good does that do to give you the same thing you can get other places? So I wanted to talk just briefly about this whole healthcare thing that's going on. So one of the big news events today was that. I'm gonna mess it up. Was it the Senate or the House? Basically, today was the day either the Senate or the House. So both the Senate and the House. Either like the Senate did it before and the House did it today, or the House did it before and the Senate did it today. One of the two. If you really care to know which one was first, go look it up online. But as of today, now all the procedural roadblocks are removed, and the Senate and the House, Congress can start repealing parts of Obamacare if they want to. And I've been seeing. I grew up in Boston, and I went to college in Boston, and I was recently. I spent a number of years in Los Angeles, which is where I came here from, and so I, as a result of that, in part, have a bunch of non-Republican liking Facebook friends, and I had really noticed as of yesterday and the day before, but really starting yesterday when all this procedural stuff was being passed in Congress to allow them to start repealing Obamacare if they want, that I saw there was like a repeated message that kept coming up in numerous Facebook posts from these friends of mine, from these non-Republican friends of mine. And one part, I want to just tell you what this message is. In case you don't have non-Republican or Republican disliking friends. One part of this message, usually the first part goes like, 30 million people are about to lose your health. I screwed up what the post was. I'm going to start this again. 30 million people are about to lose their health insurance. Call your representatives now. So that's like one part of the post. And another part of the post, and I won't name the person who this post is from, but this post is like an example of a post that a number of people I saw posted, so it's not just one person. But this one says, thousands of people will die every year so that the GOP can give a tax break to the rich. Now, another thing I want to say about the people posting this stuff is the people who I see posting these people are really smart people. Like I respect these people. I think they're really smart. And so it's not the kind of people I'd normally expect to express a view like I think is not the smartest view, because they're very smart people. But in this case, I keep seeing these very smart people make these posts on Facebook, and it's just, if you've watched me before on this network, one thing you'll notice, in addition to the fact that I talk fast and I use my hands a lot, and I stumble over my speech and I don't dress very well. In addition to that, a thing you'll notice is that I get very bothered when people don't examine both sides of an issue before coming to a conclusion. And I get bothered when things that aren't simple are oversimplified. I don't think that helps our democracy. I don't think that contributes to a better society. And what really bothers me here is, to me, the take that 30 million people are going to lose their health care and all these Americans are going to die. That's not a balanced picture of what's going to happen. That makes it sound like the choice is, well, if they would only not do this thing they're going to do, if they'd only just not pass this repealing of Obamacare, then 30 million more people could have health care and all these people wouldn't die. But now, if that was the choice and there was no cost to any of this, well, I think it would be obvious that they shouldn't repeal Obamacare. But the thing we have to keep in mind is, okay, so if they repeal Obamacare, for example, they would be repealing the Medicaid expansion, and people who got health insurance from the Medicaid expansion wouldn't have it anymore. Granted, that's the case. But the thing is, there's costs, there's benefits as well as costs. So one might argue that there are some middle-class people who essentially, because of Obamacare, don't have health insurance anymore, or good health insurance anymore. For example, if you make enough money to not qualify for the health insurance subsidies, but you don't get health care for work, basically you have to pay full price for these health care plans that are offered under Obamacare. And these health care plans, trust me, I know, because I'm on one of them. Very high deductibles, and you like it when you, unless you get like really, really sick and it costs a lot of money. For example, the first, say, $10,000 of medical expenses you get during a year, you'll be paying most of that, and if not all of it. And it basically, like, if you're stuck on, if you don't have lots of money, it makes you not want to go to the doctor. If I get sick now, I'm going to think about whether I should go to the doctor or not, because it's going to cost me tons of money. And so the thing about something like Obamacare is, yeah, it gives more people coverage, but it gives some other people like less coverage. So it's a balance here. And I don't think that when we put it in, if you put it in terms of like, either if we repeal Obamacare, it's going to take away coverage from people and people are going to die, you're ignoring the possible benefits that might have. Now, look, I don't want people to lose their coverage, and I obviously don't want people to die. But I also don't want people to decide what to do about health insurance by only considering one side of an issue. And it bothers me when people post things that really clearly only present one side of an issue. And it's not like, the issue itself of health insurance is very complex, but I don't think it's that complex to realize that there's more than one side of an issue. So I would encourage you, when it comes to health insurance or any other issues, find out both sides first, and if it sounds like too simple of a position somebody is taking, usually it's too simple of a position. That's my little rant. Okay, so moving on, now we can get to we're about to get to our guest, and let me say a little something about our guest coming up. But before we do, I'm going to check if there are any questions or comments so far. I'm going to go to the Twitter page. I'm also going to wonder if the friend whose Facebook post I just quoted will ever be, will see this and then not be friends with me, but we'll see if that happens. So anyways, again, if you want to message us in during the show, you can message me. You can ask questions. Our special guest, Dino Costa, is about to be here by phone. You can ask questions of Dino. Go to Twitter. @Lookner is my Twitter handle, ALOOKNER, direct message me. So once again, so some people actually did follow the instructions correctly this time and direct message me rather than send me like a reply to a tweet or something. So I'm going to give you preference, you people who followed instructions. We have a question for Dino, can't ask that yet. We have Gossamer says, this is Gossamer's question. Hi, Steve. When will Obamacare be repealed and when will it be replaced? Will there be any period between the two? So I have not talked to many congressmen today. I've talked to 0 congressmen today, and I've not talked to President-elect Trump today. My impression, though, if you're just asking for my gut feeling, for all of the talk of Congress wanting to repeal Obamacare really fast and passing these things the last couple of days, removing the procedural roadblocks, I can't see a world in which they repeal it without having a replacement. I think it'll be politically unacceptable. I don't think they want to do that. And President-elect Trump has basically said he doesn't want to do that. So, and this was another reason when people were posting on Facebook, there was like this sense of urgency, like 30 million people are going to lose their health care. We're like one vote away or one step away or like one day away or however they say it. But realistically speaking, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, and I do think that, so I would advise those people who are so worried, wait and see what the replacement is. I really don't think that Congress is going to repeal it without a replacement. If I'm wrong, come find me and yell at me, or yell at me online, but that's my gut feeling, Gossamer. Let's see here. All right, we have a question for Dino coming up, and we have one more comment I want to read. This is from Some Normal Benji Ganda. Some Normal Benji Ganda, could you maybe get a shorter Twitter handle so it doesn't take so long to read it? He says, I'm just going to read this to you. He says what he thinks Senate or House did was to instruct committees to do a draft legislation on Obamacare. I can't say if you're saying I was incorrect in what I said, Some Normal Benji Ganda, but I kind of kept it I didn't really say specifically, or maybe you're just trying to give viewers more detail. Anyways, I read your comment, so there. It's time to move on. Our guest has been patient. He has been very, very patient, and I thank Dino for waiting. So right now, I'm going to introduce somebody. He's going to, I believe in February, I'm going to ask him on the show to see what he says about the date. He's going to start doing a show, the first hour of which will exclusively be here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. I know he had a show on Sirius XM radio for 5 years. He is a veteran talk show host. We're really excited to have him coming on the network. And I am now introduced to you, viewers of Look, Real News with Real People, Dino Costa. Dino, how are you?
Steve, I got to tell you, the first and foremost, thanks for that very nice introduction, and to make my first appearance on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and to be on a show hosted by a guy who is not only a book author, but a guy who has written for Saturday Night Live, a guy who has written an episode of Seinfeld, and a guy who I got to share some adult beverages and some Wild Wings down at Buffalo Wild Wings in Alabama last week. This is one of the highlights of my broadcasting career. I'm doing well. How are you?
Now that you've revealed all this personal information about me, I don't know how well I'm doing anymore, Dino. But anyway, but I am doing well because I'm so happy to have you here. And so Dino, before we begin, with news stuff, can you tell the viewers and myself? I know some about you, but what's your background and what have you been doing lately, and just a little bit of your bio, just so they can get to a little bit to know you.
Yeah, well, you noted a little bit. The high point, I think, of my broadcast career was the 5 years that I spent at Sirius XM Radio, and had a tremendous time doing that show for the 5 years that I was there. Previous to that, I had worked in Denver, Colorado for 5 years prior to joining Sirius XM on something that at that time was known as the Radio Colorado Network. And my talk show host career has taken me to places like Wheeling and Huntington, West Virginia, Jacksonville, Florida, places like that. The last couple of years since I was let go by Sirius XM, Steve, I have really tried to put together an online representation of a show that has many of the similar dynamics and features that the Sirius XM show had. And, in the world of media, especially when you're doing something in a solo capacity and you're starting from ground zero, it can be very tough. It's an uphill sledding type of a situation. And previous to hooking up with you guys and partnering with, and we're so excited to be partnering with Right Side Broadcasting. But previous to that, the last couple of months, I've been doing a show locally here in Wyoming, where I currently reside, and was covering the Wyoming Cowboys football and basketball teams on radio. And then I made a pivot to get back into the opinion business, as I like to say, and inspired by what you guys have been able to do with Right Side Broadcasting, the audience that you have been able to establish, knowing what I know about Joe Seals and his vision, and he certainly is a man of vision, and I applaud him for all of his efforts. Getting in touch with Joe several weeks ago, I was not going to launch this project without the participation and the inclusion of a beachhead, as I'll refer it to, as what Right Side Broadcasting is. And we were able to come to an agreement, and Joe liked the vision of what I wanted to do. I obviously love what you guys are doing, and I think it's a perfect marriage and something that is going to serve both organizations exceptionally well.
I'm so great. I'm so excited to have you. By the way, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, like first of all, hey viewers, that's what a professional broadcasting voice sounds like. So when you compare it to my voice, so I really like it. Also, I was contrasting, I realized as you were talking, here's this guy with this awesome professional broadcasting voice, and I looked down and I realized one of my two tassels on my sweatshirt wasn't even down.
Oh, Stevie, cut it out. You're doing a great job. No, seriously though, here's the thing. I really think that people are relating to what Right Side Broadcasting is doing. One of the things that Joe said to me last week when we all met in Alabama, and by the way, I'm leaving for Alabama again Wednesday of next week as we go down to the Mobile area where we're going to be broadcasting our national show, and of course it's going to be, and we'll talk about the tie-in with Right Side. But Joe said to me something last week that has stuck with me ever since he said it to me in our little group meeting that we had, and he said, "Listen, we're not pretending to be somebody that we're not. We are who we are." He said, one of the reasons I've got this office cam up is because we're completely and totally transparent. We don't mind people watching us. We don't mind people being involved. I think there's a very intimate sort of a dynamic that Right Side has that resonates with people and allows them to feel as though they're part of this greater family of Right Side Broadcasting Network. And, I talked with you as recently as last night. We were on the phone again, and I told you I was really digging your talking points and what you were doing. And are you a trained talk show host? No. But I think, people like you who sit in a studio and just go over the issues and the talking points and raise awareness to some of the things that are important that are in the news cycle. I think that people relate to this kind of stuff, and I don't think it really matters at this point whether you're a professional broadcaster or this guy or this gal over here is a professional broadcaster. I think that we are seeing a significant shift right now in media where trailblazing news and media organizations such as Right Side, such as the Dino Report, which we'll talk about more, I think more and more people are looking for these niche-oriented sorts of media endeavors to serve them in a way that the establishment and the elite media organizations just can't anymore. And I hope we can talk about that a little bit here, because it's my feeling, Steve, that these elite media establishments, the NBCs, the CBSs, the ABCs, the ESPNs, I think that these organizations are really sliding more toward a plateau, not a plateau, but a piece of ground that has them going more and more into irrelevancy as people are not fooled by these organizations anymore, and they're looking for places like Right Side and the Dino Report and other places like that, and some of the other shows that you guys have on Right Side to get their news, their information, their commentary, their opinion, all that kind of stuff.
And thanks for saying those kind words. And I agree with you. I like lately I think of the news networks as like I compare them, I analogize them to the late night talk shows. So like there are these late night talk shows like Stephen Colbert and like Jimmy Fallon and stuff, and like in their world they think everyone's watching them. And if you look at like magazines and stuff and like the web, they're quoted so much and stuff as if like everyone watches them. But if you actually add up the viewer numbers for these shows, only a very small percentage of the American population like watches these things. And I feel like it's similar too with like the major news networks, because like they act like everybody watches them, and from consuming, like if you just sort of look in the media, mainstream media, you might think like they seem to think like they're everything. But I think so many people, and I think this was reflected in the election season, they're sick of that, or even if they're not sick of it, they don't want just that, they want another opinion, and they realize like, it's not like everything MSNBC, Fox, and CNN does, like that's the only view on things. And especially, as you were saying, I think there's this disconnect now, and people, like, they don't think about things necessarily the way the mainstream media thinks about things, and their concerns are not necessarily the concerns the mainstream media is concerned with. And I think we saw this in this election. So I agree with what you're saying. I think there's a space for people want something different, they want something more real, and we hope to bring that to them. One of the things you mentioned that caught my ear as you said it, so you were talking about like the different news networks and NBC, CBS stuff, but you also said ESPN. So I want to ask you about that. So you group ESPN into like this mainstream media grouping. How do you think there is a disconnect between ESPN and like the average American these days?
Well, first of all, I want to say that so much of what you've said, asking or commenting on what you were leading up to the question you just asked me is right on the nose. And before I get to ESPN, Steve, I just want to make mention that there is a disconnect. There is a significant shift going on in all facets of establishment, elite-oriented media. People are rejecting establishment media across the board, and they're turning more and more to alternate sources of media. And one of the other things I think that is important to note is that media has always been in an evolution sort of a process, right? You started with newspapers. Newspapers were the predominant source for information for people, the world over. Then the electronic age started, and people went to radio concurrent with newspapers. And then, of course, radio morphed into television, and now you had three different distinct levels of media. And now, where are we? We're at another jumping off point where the evolution of media is now continuing, and that's in the online world. And one of the things I was thinking about on my drive back to St. Louis, where I got on a flight and flew back to Denver and then drove back up to Wyoming after I met with you guys last week, was that how many people live their lives these days online? It used to be that there was this, when you talked about online representation of media, and I really think we are just simply right now at the doorstep, Steve, of really seeing a burgeoning online community with substantive, very quality-driven platforms featuring all kinds of news, featuring all kinds of different niches, whether you're talking about politics, social issues, sports, entertainment, financial news. I think we are really just at the doorstep right now on what is going to be a burgeoning online representation that is going to satisfy the needs and the curiosity of people that are out there that are looking for something different. And I think that those that are poised to take advantage of this captive online audience, because, everywhere we go, you go out to lunch today, you see people on their phones. Mm-hmm. You go to a Starbucks, you see people on their computers, on their phones. You go to ball games, you see people on their phones all over. We are living our lives online. And so the next evolutionary step in this process, I think, is now online, going from newspaper to radio to TV and now online. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Right Side Broadcasting, for instance, for my show, for other people that are ready to tackle the online community and to really exploit it for what it's worth. So I just wanted to note that. Now, as far as ESPN is concerned,
can I interrupt you for 1 second? Because I want.
Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah,
I want to get to your ESPN point, but when you were saying what you just said, you mentioned the drive when you came to visit us. That made me think of a story which I think illustrates this point. So I wanted to say it, and it's a story about you, and I hope you're okay with me telling it, and you might not even remember that this happened. I think I remember that it happened, so tell me if you don't remember it this way. But I think it's a good story, and I think it makes you look good, so I wouldn't say it if I made you look bad. But anyways, so a little background on the story. As you said, I have a background in the entertainment industry, working there. In the entertainment industry, so say you were working at a network or a show, and somebody like yourself came to visit, like some talent came to visit. If you wanted to like take them out to like lunch or dinner, and you want hey, they came to visit, so take them out for a meal, which is like the kind thing to do. You would try to go to like the fanciest place possible because like that's what they want. And I remember after you came here, we wanted to take you out to dinner. And, just because you bothered to come and visit us and you made the drive, and so we're like, yeah, it's the least we could do. But then when we asked, like, hey, Dino, like, so what kind of food do you like? What you just said, and it's so refreshing. I really think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dino, I remember you saying, like, do you have, like, just like an Applebee's or something like that? And I remember when you said that, I was like, this is so refreshing. Like, this is a normal person. This person is talent. This person's like had a show on national radio on SiriusXM for 5 years. They're talent. They're meeting with us about hosting a show, and yet they just want to go to like a normal person's restaurant. And like that would not happen with like big talent in like the Hollywood world. So I just think like that's normal people stuff, and that's I think so to me that bodes well, because I think people who haven't met you, you're like, I mean, you're very talented, but you're also like a regular person, and I think if they listen to your show, they'll connect with you in that way. But
yeah, we ended up going to Buffalo Wild Wings. We had a great time, and Jacob Seal was down there with us, and I was hoping that Brad Savage could make it down, but he had other plans that night. But no, no matter. I mean, listen, I've been pretty high up the food chain in terms of my broadcast career, as you mentioned, doing the 5 years at SiriusXM, and I've been asked a number of times to guest on Fox News, and I've done work with the Madison Square Garden Network in New York and all that other stuff, National Magazine Story, all that stuff, documentary film. But the one thing that really irks me, Steve, and you've been around Hollywood, you know some big time players that you've rubbed elbows with, and what really is depressing to me is when people allow, as they go up the ladder, they allow that to go to their head to the extent that it changes them cosmetically. And the person that you might have known 2 or 3 years before they have attained any level of success, anything of note, that person is somebody that you don't recognize anymore. And I've never been like that. I have always loved, and I think if you talk to the people that used to listen to me with consistency on SiriusXM, I have always had a very down-to-earth, level-headed relationship with my fans or listeners, and that's something that I hope to continue here with this new platform and the hour that we're going to have exclusively on Right Side Broadcasting. So I couldn't agree with you anymore. And another thing I might add is that, I mean, look at you, look at Joe, look at Brad, look at Micah. I mean, you guys don't wear shirts and ties to work. You guys come in, you're dressed down. Again, getting back to what Joe Seal said to me last week, we are who we are. We're not going to pretend to be something that we're not.
Nope, I agree with you. That's who we are. This is what we do. So we don't put on airs or anything, or we don't try to be anything we're not. This is what you get. I really, as hard as it is for people to believe out there, I really do dress like this in real life. Now, Dino, I still want to get to your ESPN point, but I have to just check what the listeners are commenting, because I told them they could write to us and ask you questions and stuff. And somebody already did have a question for you. And I just want to say again for the listeners out there, if you want to write into the show, go to Twitter. Go to @Lookner, Lookner, and you can direct message me, and I will get the message during the show. And if you want, and just so you know, you should see it. I know you're seeing it at the bottom of your screen. That's Dino's Twitter and Dino's website that you can go to after this show and check it out. But let me see. Some people had some questions. I see one question for you here right now, Dino. Let's see. It says, this is from Norway for Trump. Now, it's funny because Norway for Trump, we had a little thing on the show yesterday, Dino, where I said that Norway was like when he said, like when he wrote it, he would say, like, ask somebody this. And I said, Norway, can you please say please? But today he didn't say please again. But anyways, he said, Steve, ask Dino how he envisions information gathering of real news in the field will come up to a level that can give, hold on, I have to get mainstream media solid competition, please. So I think perhaps and I hope, Nora, I'm getting your question right. It sounds to me like you might be saying, like, mainstream media has all this money and all these resources, and they have all these reporters that they can send out to the field. And
right.
Does that give them an advantage over the online new media you're talking about? And how will their news gathering in the field compare to the mainstream media's news gathering in the field? That's a question for you, Dino. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think in respect to the establishment media and the vast financial resources that they have, certainly this positions them in an advantageous way that a startup news organization would not have the benefit of having those kinds of deep pockets initially. I think that the online news gathering this is what I'll say. I think that in real time, as news is happening, I think that the opportunity exists for online representation to be right there, smack dab in the middle of what's going on. More at this juncture anyway, more so than being able to, send a field of reporters halfway around the world or to a breaking story down in Texas or out in California or in the middle of the country. But I will say this, Steve. I think that as a right side continues to grow, as maybe another organization that's thinking about, gaining liftoff in the not too distant future, I think that as the revenue streams increase for organizations and platforms like this, obviously that's going to benefit them in the way of being able to do a lot more things from a diversified standpoint than maybe what they can do right now. The thing that I think is going to happen here with online, Steve, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is that when we look at traditional methods of television, if we go back to the 1980s when we were just on the cusp of the cable explosion that happened in this country, Ted Turner, who's a guy that I wouldn't agree with on 99 out of 100 things, but I've got to give the man credit for recognizing an opening, sensing an opportunity, and being instinctive enough to know that cable was the future, and he started CNN, okay? Mm-hmm. After Turner started CNN and cable started to explode, what did we see happen? We saw every single network want a piece of cable. And so they took so much of their revenue and they allocated it to cable, and they started their own cable company, not their own cable companies, but their own cable channels and networks and things like that. I think the same thing is going to occur here as far as online representation is concerned. In fact, I think it's already started. But I don't. In lieu of the question, I think that there's certain advantages, major advantages that deep-pocketed organizations have, networks and those kinds of organizations that online and startup or independent organizations don't have yet. But I think that with continued application and innovation, I think that those that are just starting out can rapidly catch up, can create their own niche audiences right now, and can do it better. See, this is the thing that I think that where we've got an advantage, Steve, is I think that Right Side and organizations like Right Side and the Dino Report will be able to resonate much more deeply and strike a chord within an audience far deeper than a network organization can, who decides to allocate resources to get into the online field, because they're basically going to be a duplication of what they're doing on network anyway. So they're not going to do anything differently online, not too much anyway, that they're not already doing as far as their network presentation is concerned. You understand what I'm saying?
I agree with you, Dino, and I don't think I think even when they go online and do more stuff online, I still think that there won't be that same connection that that people can have with a smaller outfit and a not so professional outfit. And one other thing I'll add is that you made a good point, which is in answer to the question about being out in the field. I think people now, there are people now, whenever there's a big news event, people are out there now with their periscopes and their Facebook Lives, and they're shooting from their phone and stuff. The one thing so I think in some ways now, you can get better coverage of news events in the field from individuals and not big news networks. The problem is it's hard to find it. So like if a big news event happens, so here's an example of this. I remember when the coup was going on in Turkey, it was like last year at some point, but I don't want to say 6 months ago or something, but sometime in 2016. And I wanted to figure out what was going on, and what I did is I went to Periscope, and Periscope lets you search by region. So I searched in Turkey, and it lets you choose all the individual people who are shooting video on their phone. And I started seeing people at night, and I went to a couple of feeds, and there were live feeds where people would be standing in a huge crowd of people holding up like the Turkish flag and who were pro-Erdogan. And when I started seeing this, I was like, there supposedly is this coup going on, but there's these giant crowds of people who support the current leader who are just out in the street chanting, and they're clearly not afraid of anything. And this can't be a good sign for the coup, because all these people feel like, hey, we can just go out in the street and rally, and no one's going to come and attack us. And so that was really valuable news, like real-time news reporting from the field that was not on any major news network, but I had to go and search Turkish Periscope feeds to find it. So I would encourage people out there, if news happens, there can be a lot of good stuff in the field that's not mainstream media, but you might have to do a little work to find it. But I want to now get to I was going to ask for you to get to the ESPN point, which I've been delaying finally.
Sure.
But if you do you want to, let's go to that, Dino. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, well, I just want to make one more thing.
Say what you said.
I think what you're saying, listen, as media becomes more fragmented, Stevie, the thing that people don't understand, I don't think they comprehend this. We are all, this is amazing. Because you mentioned cell phones, video, all that. We are all part of the media in some form or fashion right now, which is incredible to consider if you think back 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at the video of the white teenager, I believe, who got attacked by the four youths in Chicago last week. That wasn't like a news camera shooting that. That was somebody's phone. I believe it was one of the perpetrators' phones. But yeah, you're right. Like anything can end up on the news, and so all of this is contributing. I totally agree with you.
Correct. Okay, now what do you want to know about ESPN?
All right, so you had this point where I interrupted you about 15 minutes ago. And I want to
didn't interrupt me.
Yeah, so we were asking, so to get back to the point, was you had said that there's a disconnect, which I agree with. You made the good point. There's a disconnect lately between the mainstream media and the average person. And you were listing off media organizations, but you also listed ESPN, and I said that caught my ear. And so could you expand a little more on why you included ESPN on that list? Why do you think ESPN, the sports network, is disconnected these days from the average American?
Well, yeah, and it's something to consider. It's an amazing story that's going on that some people are taking note of, others are kind of ignoring it. But listen, I do a show that's sports, politics, life, and everything in between. And my show is a hybrid representation. My two passions in life are sports and politics, and I merge seamlessly the two components of those two content bases to provide an opinionated and improvisational, extemporaneous sort of a show for those who listen to the show, and in this case also going to be watching the show. So the sports media is something that I pay attention to very closely, Steve. And what we have seen happen here is that the audience drop off, the amount of cable cutting that has gone on, and ESPN's insistence on wrapping themselves and cloaking themselves in a blanket of liberal orthodoxy has now come back, and it's nothing, current. This has been the manifestation of years of ESPN's orthodoxy, where, look, as I like to tell people, here's the thing, Steve. When you talk, people say, well, politics and sports, how do the two go hand in hand? I challenge anyone, I do mean anyone, to present a sports issue. Now, I'm not talking about batting average, runs batted in, completion percentage, free throw percentage. I'm not talking about the nuts and bolts issues of sports. Those are fun things to talk about occasionally, but I'm an issues guy, and I do an issues-based show. Here's what I tell people. Name for me right now, even today, one sports issue being the operative word in the sentence. Give me one sports issue that does not come attached with a political and or societal bent to it. You cannot find it. And because sports and politics have really kind of merged together, because it's hard to tell the two of them apart in so many instances now, we're dealing with issues that are politically related, socially geared, and in all of these issues, ESPN has insisted that they take an extreme left of center position, and they have done this ever since Disney purchased that organization years ago.
Okay, Dino, just for our viewers out there, some of whom might not be so familiar with ESPN, could you give an example of a specific position where this is the case?
Colin Kaepernick.
Okay, and so Colin Kaepernick being the quarterback who refused to stand for the national anthem. And
correct.
And you're saying the issue of whether he should be forced to stand or not. And ESPN's position on that was
to the left, was agreeing with Kaepernick, was shading all their coverage in a pro-Kaepernick light. Mm-hmm. The way that they shoved a couple of years ago, I found it disgusting. I found it nauseating, Steve. The whole Bruce Jenner thing, who's parading around making believe he's a woman now as Caitlyn Jenner, and presenting him on their ESPYs, which is their yearly show where they hand out their own awards, similar to the Emmys and the Oscars and all that. They call this the ESPYs, and they awarded Bruce Jenner, now going around mentally ill, calling himself Caitlyn. They gave the Courage Award to Bruce Caitlyn Jenner. I mean, you know, and listen, this is chapter and verse. Those are only two things that I can bring up front and center to you. There are a host of issues. No matter what the issue is, in a story that comes equipped in the sports world from a political or a social point of view, ESPN is far to the left. The unfortunate aspect for ESPN is that they don't seem to have learned their lesson, because they continue to double and triple down on this liberal orthodoxy. And what has happened to them over the years is that people have left ESPN in the dust. They have left ESPN in droves. They have lost millions and millions of viewers. And this is an organization that is really centered right now at the crossroads. And depending upon what they do, I don't know if they're going to make a pivot at all and come back a little bit to the center or whatever, but you cannot find, you know what's interesting? You look at Fox News, and over the last couple of years, I have not been a giant Fox News fan, especially since the Trump phenomenon began and Megyn Kelly and all that other stuff. But Fox News, even at the apex of its conservative leanings as an organization with the people that they had on talking, Fox News also would offer a liberal point of view, or the perceived leftist in the group. We see that now, even today. Geraldo Rivera, Juan Williams. I don't think Neil Cavuto, by the way, is a conservative. I think he's right in the middle. But they always bring people on who offer a competing line of thought. At ESPN, you will not find one person on their station, on the television station, ESPN, ESPN2, none of their talk shows that they have, ESPN Radio. You will not find one conservative-minded person who works for ESPN. And you know why, Steve? Because they don't allow it.
Well, so that it reminded me of something which drove me crazy. And so Curt Schilling, if I'm getting the story right, was let go by ESPN like last year because he made some very comments that were conservative, but they thought were intolerant comments, if I'm remembering this right. But I remember when they let him go, I thought about how they have this reporter, Chris Broussard, who they keep on the air, even though Chris Broussard has said has
right. He's gone now, by the way. He left. He went to Fox Sports. But I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
They didn't fire him, right?
No, he left to go to Fox Sports. But
that's fine. I thought he was still on ESPN, so thank you for the correction. But I remember he came on and he said things about he said being gay is a sin. And I just remember, and that wasn't something worthy of being fired. And my point is that I feel like there was arbitrariness about who they keep and who they fire. And as soon as you I feel like as soon as you start firing people for their personal beliefs, there's this real risk of
no, but it's worse. The hypocrisy runs deeper. Right. What you say is you don't fire a person for their personal point of view, their personal beliefs, their worldview, and all that other stuff. Right. That's fine, and I would agree with you. But here's the thing. Here's the hypocrisy with ESPN. Thou shalt not publicly align themselves with anything right of center. If you do, here's your pink slip and your walking papers. But by the way, if you're on the left and you agree with everything on the left and the Obama administration and everything that is left of center, speak your mind, tweet your life away. Go ahead, be brazen, be bold. You can do that. But on the right, no, shut up. We're going to censor you. We're going to fire you. I mean, the hypocrisy is appalling at ESPN.
So viewers, we only have a couple minutes left here, Dino. But I'm really glad you brought that topic. And I will say,
only a couple of minutes.
I know. What can I say?
Maybe we should go on for the next 90 minutes. You and me.
The problem is I don't want to upset Joey Salads, and Joey Salads is Joey Saladino is his show. His second episode of his show, the Joey Saladino Show, is premiering at 7:00 Central,
oh my goodness,
8:00 Eastern. So we will upset him.
Hey, wait, hold on. It's 8:00 Eastern. I hope Joey Salads doesn't become too comfortable with those 60 minutes.
Oh, so can you please let people know when your radio show, now I know you don't know exactly when, but roughly when do you think it's
No, I do not.
Oh, you do have a firm date now.
What's with the perfect symmetry of coming on here tonight with you, Steve, is that 1 month from today, we will launch the Dino Report on thedinoreport.com.
Okay.
And sports, politics, life, everything in between. I'm an issues guy, do an issues-based show. It will be completely interactive. We'll have phone calls. We'll have a regular and consistent high-visibility guest lineup on. We'll talk about all the issues of the day. It'll be an uncensored, unscripted, organic sort of a show. All of the characteristics and features that have become hallmarks of mine since I've been doing talk radio. It will be presented in both video and audio form. We'll have an app. All shows will be archived and cataloged for listener playback at their convenience and at their leisure. We'll do all these things. The show is going to run from 8 p. to midnight, Monday through Friday. So start time 7 p. Central, 6 p. Mountain, 5 p. out on the West Coast. And we're really...
And just to clarify, so the first hour of that show, they can only see at Right Side Broadcasting.
Yeah, let me tell people. The first hour of the show is exclusively going to be broadcast on the Right Side Broadcasting Network. So the first hour of the show, every 60 minutes, is going to be on Right Side Broadcasting. From there, people will go to thedinoreport.com to watch the final 3 hours of the show, if that's what they choose to do. So that's what we're looking forward to, and we're jacked up, fired up, amped up for this, Steve. Love all you guys down there, down-to-earth individuals. I feel like I'm with like-minded people, and love the spirit, love the fusion that's involved in this whole thing. And, of course, the audience deserves what Right Side Broadcasting is doing, and the audience clearly deserves the Dino Report. I think that shows like the Dino Report and all the shows on Right Side Broadcasting, and Right Side Broadcasting as a network, people need this now in America more than ever before, and we're just the guys to give it to them, Steve.
I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Because we have so little time left, I want to get to one more viewer question for you, but I'm going to limit our discussion of it to like a minute or so. So see if we can do this fast, because we could go on for. I agree with you. I wish we had more time. So Mike Flynn says, please ask Dino, does he consider Trump's victory a, in quotes, walk-off win? So and
I know what Mike.
Yes.
That's Mike. That's an inside joke.
Oh, I don't even get the joke. So explain it.
The joke is this, real quick, is that this new the terminology in sports, high pointing the football, all this other, put the ball on the ground, instead of just saying the guy can jump higher, or it's a fumble like we used to say. So the other thing is, Steve, you remember everything now is a walk-off in the bottom of the ninth, walk-off field goal, walk-off goal, walk-off. And instead of saying game ending, as we said for years, now it's walk-off, and I refuse to use those words, walk-off this and walk-off that.
It's kind of like there's like a PC-ness of like sports terms, and you're not PC when it comes to this sports lingo. So
oh, by the way, my favorite ice cream. You mentioned that in the introduction.
What's your favorite flavor?
Well, and nobody would ever describe me this way. And for a guy who's never described as vanilla in any way, shape, or form, my favorite ice cream flavor, Steve, believe it or not, is vanilla.
Oh, that's good to know. I'm glad I remembered this. You talking about my food made me remember. So if Applebee's is watching, the reason we didn't go to Applebee's is not because we decided we didn't like Applebee's. It's because we weren't aware that there was an Applebee's near here, and that's how we ended up at Buffalo Wild Wings. And then a couple of nights ago, I was driving around here in Alabama, and I saw there was an Applebee's nearby, and I was like, oh, we could have taken Dino to his first choice. But we didn't know that, Dino. It's an honest.
Listen, Steve,
story.
thanks to to you. Thanks to everybody there and all the listeners and viewers. Please follow the show on Twitter at Dino Report Radio. And I don't have the screen up in front of me, but I would imagine you guys had my my Twitter address and also
it was
the
up there, the
website.
Twitter, and your Twitter is.
There you go.
Say your Twitter. Say what your Twitter is again.
Yeah, the Twitter is.
I see. I put you on the spot. Now you're not going to remember it. That's my fault.
Yeah, you know, I don't always remember these things.
I don't. Yeah, you know, we had Jake Seals who was on last night. Didn't remember his own Twitter either. So it's fine.
At Dino Report Radio, at Dino Report Radio, and the website, of course, is thedinoreport.com.
Awesome.
I'd love to do this again with you, Steve, and continued success with this. I'm really liking what you're doing, and 1 month from tonight, we get going with the Dino Report on RSBN. So
Thank you so much, Dino, for calling in. You've been an amazing guest, and I'm so excited to hear your show, and I hope everybody out there will tune into Dino's show when it comes up. Sadly, that's all the time we have for now, but we hope you will join us in the future for more Real News with Real People. And also next week is our big inauguration week, where we're going to have coverage of the inauguration, the Deplorable, all the event, like the parade, a bunch of events surrounding the inauguration. We're going to be there. We're going to have multiple people, multiple cameras in D.C., so be sure to tune in to us next week. And for now, I'll just say have a great weekend. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later.